Welcome to this article from UPSCpractice.com on the Rowlatt Act. The Anarchical and Revolutionary Crimes Act of 1919, popularly known as the Rowlatt Act, was a Legislative Council Act passed by the Imperial Legislative Council in Delhi on 18th March 1919. It indefinitely extended the emergency measures of preventive, indefinite detention, incarceration without trial and judicial review enacted in the Defence of India Act 1915 during the First World War. The Rowlatt Act was enacted in light of a perceived threat from revolutionary nationalists to organizations of re-engaging in similar conspiracies as during the war, which the government felt the lapse of the Defence of India Act would enable. The Anarchical and Revolutionary Crimes Act of 1919 was passed by the British colonial government with the sole purpose to arrest any person without any reason whatsoever. It gave the police the power to curb the growing nationalist upsurge in the country by being able to arrest any citizen without justification. Gandhi called upon the people to perform satyagraha against the act. Passed on the recommendations of the Rowlatt Committee and named after its president, Sir Sidney Rowlatt, the Act effectively authorized the colonial government to imprison any person suspected of terrorism living in British India for up to 2 years without a trial, and gave the colonial authorities power to deal with all revolutionary activities. The unpopular legislation provided for stricter control of the press, arrests without warrant, indefinite detention without trial, and juryless in-camera trials for proscribed political acts. The accused were denied the right to know the accusers and the evidence used in the trial. Those convicted were required to deposit securities upon release and were prohibited from taking part in any political, educational, or religious activities. On the report of the committee, headed by Justice Rowlatt, 2 bills were introduced in the Central Legislature on 6th February 1919. These bills came to be known as Black Bills. They gave enormous powers to the police to search a place and arrest any person they disapproved of without warrant. Despite much opposition, the Rowlatt Act was passed on 18th March 1919. The purpose of the Act was to curb the growing nationalist upsurge in the Indian subcontinent. Let's take a look at the impact of this Act. Mahatma Gandhi, among other Indian leaders, was extremely critical of the Rowlatt Act and argued that not everyone should be punished in response to isolated political crimes. Madan Mohan Malaviya and Muhammad Ali Jinnah, a member of the All India Muslim League, resigned from the Imperial Legislative Council in protest against the Act. The Rowlatt Act also angered many other Indian leaders and the public, which caused the government to implement repressive measures. Gandhi and others thought that constitutional opposition to the measure was fruitless. So on 6th April, a hartal took place. This was an event in which Indians suspended businesses and went on strikes and would fast, pray, and hold public meetings against the Black Act as a sign of their opposition, and civil disobedience would be offered against the law. Mahatma Gandhi bathed in the sea at Mumbai and made a speech before a procession to a temple took place. This event was part of the non-cooperation movement. It was the Rowlatt Act which brought Gandhi to the mainstream of the Indian struggle for independence and ushered in the Gandhian era of Indian politics. However, the success of the Hartal in Delhi on 30th March was overshadowed by tensions running high, which resulted in rioting in the Punjab, Delhi, and Gujarat. Deciding that Indians were not ready to make a stand consistent with the principle of non-violence, an integral part of Satyagraha, Gandhi suspended the resistance. Satyagraha means disobeying the British colonial government's law without using violence. The Rowlatt Act came into effect on 21st March 1919. In Punjab, the protest movement was very strong, and on 10th April, two leaders of the Congress, Dr. Satyapal and Saifuddin Kichliu, were arrested and taken secretly to Dharamsala. The army was called into Punjab, and on 13th April, people from neighboring villages gathered for Baisakhi Day celebrations and to protest against deportation of two important Indian leaders in Amritsar, which resulted in the Jallianwala Bagh massacre of 1919. Revocation of the Act. Accepting the report of the Repressive Laws Committee, the British colonial government repealed the Rowlatt Act, the Press Act, and 22 other laws in March 1922. Thank you very much for listening to this article on the Rowlatt Act. For more such articles, install the UPSC Practice app from the App Store.